Okay, we're live, and we're going to just cover some of these setups for the daily wrap-up session. We've got some pretty good ones to look at. We have seen a lot of crazy, wild, nutty price action today. We saw big spikes and big reversals and all of that good stuff. And let's talk about how we can get back into the market and where some entries are and some things that we can do to continue riding out the rest of these moves, which I think should play out going into into the end of the month and even into the first week or so of June. I think we still have a bit more to the downside on euro dollar, pound dollar, Aussie dollar is a definite maybe. Um, so we're going to cover that. As always, questions, comments, let me know. Let's have a little peek here at the euro dollar to kind of start things off. Um, so the euro dollar kind of made this crazy run. Everything made a crazy run actually with the news. Bernanke was back at it again, being his crazy self that we haven't seen much of in a little while. And you can see the reaction of the dollar to that news was pretty sharp up and pretty heavy reversal back down. And so what I'm looking for specifically, I'm looking for a couple of things that I think might be worth keeping an eye on the short-term trades. I'm still very bearish. I still think this euro dollar is headed, big time down. We're kind of stuck. You can see that we're kind of stuck here at this little level. This is 128, kind of 45, 50-ish area, kind of that good old round number. You can see we've tested and tested and tested, and here we are right back at it again. It looked like we were kind of working on a bit of an inverted head and shoulders pattern, but that is all going to be nullified after we make a nice little break back below this area, which is basically the tops, upside down bottoms of the shoulders of this inverted head and shoulders pattern. So as soon as we get below that, that completely invalidates this whole situation and should allow it to continue down at least into the lows, which were the head here at 120. This is about 12800. I'm still very, very set on 12700, 12750 at least, and 12700 and potentially even 126. 50 and 12600 to possibly pay out on some of these or on this euro dollar. So couple of things to look at. We had this big rally up and all this mumbo jumbo right here. So the high to low today is about 150 pips, 160 pips. So one thing that I'll keep an eye on is if this low holds, which it may or may not. As always, I'm going to look at some fib levels and look at just the short-term kind of retracement here. By the way, of this little run, you can see that we just peaked up and touched that 50% and that 200 moving average, and we're right back down again. So that was a nice little short squeeze. Get everyone out of the market and get them back in at a worse price. The typical short squeeze type stuff. But what I think that we have potential to do on this euro dollar is just, watch this little level here, watch this range. We have a couple of really good ones that I think will be good to look at here. And you can see that our fib level is around 128.72. This is the 23% fib. So as long as we hold above this low, and break above this, which is also perfectly overlapping the weekly pivot, that'll take us back towards the daily pivot of the current daily pivot before the new one. And I think that's going to be a great area to short. I'm happy to short this euro dollar back at about 12900 with stops above this high, about 100 pip stops, and I think we've got at least 150 to 200 pip profit target from 12900. So in a longer term setting, I'm happy to put put a trade on here, and we probably will put a pending order right around that area. We'll see if we get the retracement or not. of 12900 for a medium to longer term trade. Again, 150 to 200 pip profit target on this euro dollar. Because I think it is going to continue to slide, continue to run down, and if we can just get one more spike up, that'll be great. Now, not to mention, we have a missed daily pivot on the euro dollar, or we're about to anyways, at 128.96. So 128.96 is approximately well, it's exactly the 38% fib. So that's our missed pivot right there. And the 38% fib and so that's going to be a perfect little area to aim for, and again to look to getting short right around that. So, and again, if anybody's just logging on or anything, this is all recorded. I will post the recording as soon as it's formatted and uploaded and so on as soon as we're done here. So again, we just need to hold above this little low area here, which is about 128.33 or so. If we can hold above that and then make a little cross of this 23% fib, which is around 128.73 or so, then that should give us that run into that 12900. First of all, we've got a nice little, run to the missed pivot there. We've got a move to the 38% fib and so on. Remember, if this opens above that fib level, let it pull back just a little bit, because right now that's a pretty, it's 40 pips or so worth of stop loss from the 23 down to the 0. So again, if it opens above that, let it pull back a little bit. Look for entries maybe, just a bit closer, maybe around the 128.60-ish area. After it's opened above that 23% fib. So just kind of keep that in mind. It'll probably open above it, and it'll probably pull back as well, and give us a chance to tighten up that stop and expand that profit target for the missed daily pivot and the 38% fib. So that's kind of what I'm looking at there. Remember, overall, what I think is super interesting on this euro dollar is this perfect head and shoulders pattern that is playing out so fantastically well. Now we have all these support levels down here, like 127, 40, 50, and then we have this little guy down here is about 126.60, and then after that it gets all pretty open, open territory until about 120, 40, 45, 50 area. And with a head and shoulders pattern like this on the weekly chart, one that we just have not seen the likes of in a while, I mean, that is so clear and so textbook and so just right and staring us in the face. I could very, very easily see this euro dollar reaching that 120, a little ways out there. Of course, not super quickly. It could be, to really break those levels, that would be like end of summer type stuff. But we could be grinding our way lower throughout the summer, and so those are things that we're definitely going to be looking at. But I think the euro dollar still has a very, very bearish overtone and undertone and sideways tone and everything else. So I think it should be able to continue down after some retracements and some bounces and all of that stuff. But again, our target needs to be clearing the 23%, getting a run into the 38, which is once again perfectly overlapping the missed daily pivot point. And from there, looking for opportunities to short against the high. So again, about 12900, our high is going to be about 100 pips away, with profit targets of at least 12700. At least 12700 on the euro dollar. So I'll post all that in the notes, but that's kind of what I'm looking for right now. If we don't get all that retracement, then I may try to just do some manual entries, and of course I'll post this and I'll tweet this out and everything. I may try to get some manual entries, just trading the break of this, 128. 40-ish area, but I'd rather get some pullback, and I think we will get some pullback. I think we've got quite a bit there, but we have broken out of this channel here as well, and all of that stuff. But remember, when we have these big reversal candles like this, it's very, very common to see at least a decent amount of retracement on that reversal candle, and that's where our 38 to even 50% fibs are going to come into play pretty nicely to kind of pick up some of the retracement on that big bearish candle. So that's what I'm looking for in the euro dollar. Again, I'll post more details in the notes, let you all know about that. But I think we'll have some good stuff coming up here. Pound dollar. So the pound dollar's kind of done this wild and crazy run. We have a missed daily pivot on the pound dollar here from today, and then our next pivot on the pound dollar as well is going to be about 150.80 or so, and 150.80 is right about there. So that again gives us 40 plus pips, 45 or so pips to get there. We have a nice reversal candle on this pound dollar against daily support 2, and it seems like definitely we're kind of holding that area. Now once again, it's always nice to kind of find some fib levels that will overlap that general kind of daily pivot area and so on. You can see that kind of this 38% fib from kind of this most recent run here basically overlaps that daily pivot point. So we have a nice little run down there. 170 pips. Once again, you could look for even a larger, weekly high to weekly low kind of scenario. But just keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on this run here. I think there's probably a decent opportunity to trade a little bit against this. See if we can catch a little bit of a bounce against this reversal candle right here and against this low, and get back up above about 150. 55, 150, 60 area into that missed pivot, into that 38% fib, and so on. So that's kind of what I'm looking for right there. I'm a little bit, I don't know how far I think the pound dollar is going to go. We're down at some pretty significant support. You can see this right here. These are lows. These little wicks have tipped down here, and this is just a tiny bit above 150 even. It's about 150.25, 150.30 area, and we're sitting right there. We've tested that, and we could end up getting a bit of a bounce here, so we have to keep an eye on that situation. But I think it's very possible for the pound to get further into these lows, like 148 and change, even below 140, below 149. Into the 148s is a very possible scenario as well. So it's just whether we're going to have enough push, with the last part of this summer move in the works. So that's kind of the question mark. Windy, the way that you do that is you just double click on your fib, go to fib properties, and under your Fibo levels right there, next to 23 and 38, whichever ones you want to have there, just highlight that and put in a percent and a dollar sign, percent and dollar sign, and that will bring up the numbers on your fib levels, percent and dollar sign. So that's how you do it. It's pretty simple there in those fib levels. So anyways, that's kind of what I'm looking for on this pound dollar. If the pound dollar can retrace enough, and again, it's a little bit of a question of which range we want to look for here. It's kind of a tough one, if we want to go from the weekly high to weekly low, or kind of this range, because we did have a bit of retracement there. I'm not really counting that as retracement because that's all one candle, and it was kind of on the news announcement. So maybe this is our range, maybe this is our range. It's a little bit of a tough one to kind of tell, but I ultimately kind of like the bigger potential movement there, but the smaller ones may still give us a nice reaction. So that one's going to be a little bit tough. But overall, it doesn't change the fact that we have a nice reversal candle right here and an opportunity to trade against that level. And we're only 13 pips off that low. We still do have a missed daily pivot just up here. If you look at it on this scale, it's right overlapping the 23% fib if we're going weekly high to weekly low. So I still think there's a good opportunity, and I never hate risking a couple of pips against a major level. And this is a pretty major level right here. Given the daily chart that we looked at, this 100 or this 150, 20, 30 area has held pretty strong for a couple of months. So that might just be enough to get a bounce up into that, missed pivot and up into that range there. But keep in mind, we do have a missed pivot here as well, and the pound dollar is probably the most bearish looking out of the pairs, so that's where I'm going to be a little bit cautious. But the closer we get to that support, the closer we can put our stops and kind of do that whole thing. So I will I'll be watching. I'm gonna be around most of the afternoon and evening. I'm gonna be looking, and I'll let you guys know if I do take an entry on this pound dollar to buy against this support. And then as far as selling this once again, if we can get into some of these fib levels on this larger range, I'd be definitely happy to sell some more pound dollar. You know, in the selling side of things, I would definitely be looking at the larger range and watching to see how it behaves with this 23 above the 23. You know, we don't want to be selling that one just yet. If it can't break above 23, then I think we're pretty safe to continue selling and shorting this into potentially 148, you know, and beyond. So that's kind of my pound dollar situation. So I think that we have, you know, possibly an easier entry and a sooner, quicker entry on the euro dollar, pound dollar. You know, besides just trading against this support, which I may or may not do. It's always risky, you know, but if we can get really close and maybe only risk 10 pips, and if it breaks and stops us out, fine. If not, you know, let's try to ride this thing up a little bit, either against support or above, you know, the 23% fib, and try to make a run into that missed daily pivot. Aussie dollar is continuing to push lower. Now, one thing that I was looking at on the Aussie dollar, again, we'll have a missed pivot, and we've got some 23%. This one's very clear, very easy. From this double top here to this low, our 23% fib is at 97.04. If we get above that, then our missed pivot, if I had to take a wild guess, I'd bet our missed pivot is probably right at that 38%, which is 97.30. What do we have for the Aussie dollar? 97.28. So right on the money. Those missed pivots most of the time will be about that 38% level on, you know, on the 1 hour range. So there's our missed pivot, but we do have to get above 97.04 to get a safe entry there. And this Aussie dollar is heavy and heavy. And it's, you know, it's already breaking below just a little bit here, but it hasn't totally invalidated this range yet. So let's see if it can sit and not get too much below this 96.60, you know, 50.60 area, because we still might have a good chance to take a bounce and ride this, you know, even up to the 23, but through the 23 into the 38. So this one will be good to watch, and specifically, you know, my recommendation is be very careful trying to buy against this, because it could just continue, you know, plowing through everything. And the whole reason of the 23 to 38% fib trade is momentum. And if we get above that 23, then we've got enough momentum to get into the 38 and even into the 50. But if we don't get above the 23, you know, and we just buy against this support, you know, we're definitely risking some you know, some pretty quick, easy stop outs on that, because of, you know, the trend is obviously down and we don't have enough momentum for a big bounce. So that's just a reiteration of the importance of the 23% fib. So on most of these pairs, I'm watching for the 23% fib, looking for a break, seeing if we can get back up above those, so that we can trade into those missed pivots. If we can't, that's cool, that's fine. We'll just keep trading with the trend, but if we can, we've got a nice little trade there. Now, the Aussie dollar, this thing just keeps on heading south in a big way, and it's coming down into some big supports here. You can see that this is on the weekly chart. Our low of, it looks like our low of May of last year is at 95, is almost 9,600. It's just about 9,600, a tiny bit below 9,600, and we're only, you know, 50 or 60 pips away from that. So we're going to start running into some, you know, some big support from the entire year low of last year, and then we've got, you know, some big support not too far below that as well. So it might be time to get there, and we might be heading into that, but we definitely have to kind of mind ourselves and be careful with that. Let's just run over here real quick. Euro yen's bouncing around. Our Aussie yen trade is doing well again. It's been kind of up and down and all around, but for anybody that is just joining us or you know, so on, we have an Aussie yen trade, which we got into at 99.95. We've got 100 pip stops. We're going to scale into this trade, and it's filled. So it's been a kind of a crazy run. We got in on this breakout. At one point we were up about 45 pips. At another point we were down about 10, and here it is up about 25 pips once again. So it's been a bit of a wild runner. I think this Aussie yen has some really good potential, though. As I've said, we're just sitting on. If we look at this little weekly run, this most recent run right here, we're sitting on the 23% fib. Which we're not sitting on it. We're close though. 23% fib sits at about 9,900, and if we get below that, that opens up that 9,500 for us, wide open, and that's a great target and a great area to start shooting for on this move and this run down. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Obviously, we need to clear this 99.60. This has been a tough level. That's our Friday low. We spiked a little bit below it, but it retraced a bunch, and now it's starting to run back in the right direction. So no change on the Aussie yen. We're in it. Again, you can see it in the notes, 99.95. Parameters are set. We'll scale into this thing, even potentially below 99.50, but most likely below 9,900 is where we'll scale into it. Because I think we have at least a 300 to 400 pip run on this thing. So I want to make sure we have a lot of profit before we start scaling into this. So no big change on Aussie yen. We're just kind of letting this sit and do its thing. The more likely ones, I don't think this is a safe bet to try to short against, to buy against this level here on the Aussie dollar, so I'm not going to do anything there. I'm just going to hold out on that one for a little bit unless we get above 90, 97.04. But if this breaks too much further, we're going to have to redraw our fib levels and so on. But basically, if this gets above about 9,700, I think it could have a good chance of reaching that daily pivot. If not, I'm not going to chase it. I'm not going to try to trade that break. Pound dollar. Again on pound dollar and euro dollar, let's watch these lows. So again, the euro dollar current low of the day is 128.33, and the pound dollar current low of the day is 150.18. Let's watch these levels and let's look for any reasons to get in on the bounce. Look for reversal candles, look for anything, and let's get in as close to these levels as possible and look for opportunities to trade back towards that missed daily pivot for today. The closer we can get it into that area, the larger stop we can set for safety. So 10 pips below instead of only 5 pips below might be a safer bet. So if we can get in maybe 5 pips from the low, which we're pretty close on everything, then we can have a 15 pip stop and we can target, have a pretty nice risk to reward ratio. On those two pairs. So again, no change on the Aussie yen. We're just playing it out and letting it hopefully ride into some nice profits. And then we'll be watching euro dollar and pound dollar and seeing how they react. And if they break these lows, then we may end up shorting through support. If they don't break those lows, then we're going to look for some opportunities to see any kind of reversals off those daily lows and buy into the pairs to trade back to those missed daily pivots. So again, I'll update all that in the notes and get all those details posted. But I think we'll have good opportunities on both pairs to still buy into or sell into this big downtrend. And hopefully it'll play out nicely, and I think it will. And I'm just going to kind of keep updating things as the day kind of rolls on, and we'll just see where everything goes from there. But does anybody have any questions? Are there any pairs you've been looking at? Anything I didn't cover? Anything that was unclear that I did cover? Any questions at all? Let me know. Let me know any questions at all. Once again, we're already in the Aussie yen. We closed out our pound dollar today. Sadly, on the crazy news, I'm never sad about taking 185 pips, but I'm sad because there's a lot more pips to be had, and it's definitely continued a bit lower since where we got out. But it was a nice profit. We took it. If anyone did not take it and you're still in it, fantastic. Stay in it because it's got a little bit more to go. But and last but not least, remember we have news coming up on Thursday. Let's just peek at this real quick, but our Thursday news should kind of add a good little bit into euro pairs specifically. Draghi speaking. I'm not sure what he's speaking about actually. Okay, so that should be a little bit of a mover. So watch Draghi. That'll be tomorrow, like noonish, right around there. Um, so that's going to be a little ways out. But new home sales for the U.S. tomorrow, unemployment claims for the U.S. And then we have the estimated, or we have some GDP numbers for the U.K. tomorrow. So that can definitely have an impact on the pound, as well as German and French manufacturing numbers. So those definitely will have an impact on the euro pairs. So that's why I'm kind of just patiently waiting to see if we can get a little bit of retracement, a little bit of pullback on these pairs, and especially with that news coming out, we may be able to get some, some continued retracement. But again, we're already in the Aussie yen, so we're in something, and we're in some profit on that. So we'll ride that out, and we will do our best to re-enter euro dollar and pound dollar pairs as soon as possible. And I'll have those details kind of coming over the next day or so, or excuse me, over the next several hours, but definitely by tomorrow morning. But hopefully a few more things later on tonight. And so I'll just update the notes right now. So any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'm going to stop the recording now and update the notes, and think of your questions, comments, and type them right on in.